The North Atlantic, July of last year. A man named Cam Cameron is clinging to a rock the size of a tennis court, 230 miles from the Scottish mainland. The waves are climbing, his radio is failing, and the only thing that can reach him is a Sikorsky S-92 helicopter, operating at the absolute outer limit of its fuel range. He would later say he did not believe he was going to come off Rockall alive. He thought he was going to die. Then he heard the rotor blades. Within 2 minutes of the helicopter arriving on scene, Cam Cameron was inside the cabin. 2 minutes to extract a man from a rock surrounded by hostile sea, from an aircraft that was already calculating whether it had the fuel to make the journey home. That extraction was not luck, it was physics, executed by people who understand exactly how thin the margin is between rescue and catastrophe. This is the world of HM Coastguard cliff and maritime rescue, and almost nothing the public believes about it is technically correct. Inverness, 1945. The very first recorded helicopter hoist rescue takes place when a hydraulic winch fitted to a Sikorsky R5 lifts 2 crew members from a stricken oil barge near Fairfield, Connecticut. 80 years on, the United Kingdom maintains one of the most demanding Coastguard rescue operations on Earth. 36,000 incidents per year, 300 Coastguard rescue teams positioned along the British shoreline on 24-hour readiness, 2,735 search and rescue helicopter taskings annually, which works out at 7.5 every single day of the year, 18 helicopters across 10 bases, from Stornoway in the Outer Hebrides to Lyon-Solent on the south coast. Within that vast operation sits a specialist tier almost no one outside the service has heard of. They are called rope rescue technicians. These are the personnel who go over the cliff edge, on a line, into the void to recover casualties from positions that no other emergency service can physically reach. And the reason their work is so technically demanding comes down to one principle, that the human brain is frankly very bad at understanding intuitively. Force. Consider what is actually happening when a Coastguard rescuer is suspended over a cliff edge. There is the weight of the rescuer. There is the weight of the casualty they are attempting to recover. There is the weight of the stretcher, the harness, the rigging, the auxiliary equipment. And critically, there are the angles at which all of these loads pull against each other and against the anchor system at the top of the cliff. Rope work is described by professionals in the field as a constant battle with gravity. The equipment, the pulleys, the mechanical advantage systems, all of them exist to manipulate gravity into working for the rescuer rather than against them. The moment the physics is miscalculated, gravity wins, and gravity does not negotiate. The technical term is vector force. When a load pulls through a system of ropes set at angles, those angles do not divide the force, they multiply it. A 250 kilogram load suspended at certain angles can generate forces on the anchor that exceed 500 kilograms, doubled, from geometry alone. This is why mechanical advantage systems matter so profoundly. A properly configured pulley system means that 3 rescuers pulling 100 pounds each can lift a 300-pound casualty up a vertical cliff face. The pulleys do not create energy. They redistribute it through distance, allowing controlled extraction where brute force would fail. But pay attention to this next detail, because it explains everything that follows. The same physics that makes rescue possible also makes it lethal, and the standard that governs rope strength in the United Kingdom and across the Western world was written in blood. June the 27th, 1980, New York City. 2 firefighters from Rescue 3, Gerald Frisbee and Larry Fitzpatrick, are working a high-rise fire on the 7th floor. Fitzpatrick is lowered from the roof on a half-inch nylon rope, 150 feet in length, in an attempt to reach Frisbee, who is trapped at a window. The rope is now supporting the weight of both men. The line snaps. Both firefighters fall to their deaths. The investigation that followed produced a standard the rope rescue community had needed for decades. The National Fire Protection Association established what is now known as NFPA 1983, the Standard on Life Safety Rope and Equipment for Emergency Services. The committee made a deliberate decision that defines rope rescue to this day. They set the safety factor at 15:1. Other industries operated on 10:1. The committee pushed for 15 specifically because of one technical reality. Most knots placed in a rope reduce that rope's tensile strength by approximately 1/3. By starting at 15:1 and accounting for that 1/3 reduction, the working safety margin remains at 10:1, even when the rope is knotted. A general use rescue rope under the current standard must withstand 40 kilonewtons of force. That is 9,000 pounds. The carabiners that connect into that system must match it. The calculation behind the entire standard assumes 300 pounds of load for every rescuer or casualty on the rope. That sounds like an enormous margin. It is not, because the real enemy in vertical rescue is not static weight, it is the fall. In a quiet ticking that no rescuer ever forgets, the clock had already started the moment they went over the edge. Here is where the physics becomes properly counterintuitive. The severity of a fall on a rope is not measured by how far the casualty falls. It is measured by something called the fall factor. The fall factor is calculated by dividing the distance fallen by the length of rope available to absorb the energy. A 2-meter fall on a 2-meter rope produces a fall factor of 1. A 2-meter fall on 1 meter of rope produces a fall factor of 2. And here is the part that defies intuition. A 20-meter fall on 20 meters of rope produces the exact same fall factor and the exact same forces on the system as a 1-meter fall on 1 meter of rope. Distance is not the danger, the ratio is the danger. A maximum fall factor of 2, which occurs when a rescuer falls twice the length of their tether, is almost certain to cause serious injury unless there is energy absorption built into the system. The body cannot tolerate it. Read the next sentence carefully, because it explains why Coastguard rope teams move with the deliberation they do. A 10G deceleration is enough to cause a fighter pilot to lose consciousness as blood is forced from the brain into the legs. A 16G deceleration causes structural damage to the human skeleton. At 16G, a 15-pound human head behaves as though it weighs 240 pounds. Cervical fracture becomes nearly guaranteed. That is what an unprotected fall on a short tether does to a body, and that is what every piece of equipment, every anchor calculation, every meter of rope deployed by a Coastguard rope rescue technician is engineered to prevent. If you are finding this technical breakdown useful, subscribe to Civil Defence UK. We cover the engineering, the operations and the people behind British emergency response in detail you will not find anywhere else. By 2024, the demands on the United Kingdom Coastguard Service had reached a level few outside the operations rooms appreciated. Whitehaven Coastguard Rescue Team alone responded to 109 taskings in a single year, a 22% increase over the previous 12 months. 102 casualties recovered, assisted or advised, 13 searches for missing persons, 7 rope rescues, 6 helicopter landing site operations, and these are the figures for a single team on a single section of the Cumbrian coast. Scale that pattern across 300 teams and the operational tempo becomes apparent. But the Coastguard does not operate alone in vertical rescue. When the cliff is too high, when the casualty is too injured to be walked up, when the tide is rising faster than rope teams can deploy, the helicopters come. And the helicopters bring an entirely different set of physical problems. Helicopters change everything. The principal aircraft in United Kingdom Search and Rescue Service is the Sikorsky S-92, a 12,000 kilograms heavy lift helicopter with a rotor diameter of approximately 17 meters. The hoist systems fitted to these aircraft and to their smaller counterparts are typically Breeze Eastern variable speed winches, capable of lifting up to 272 kilograms on cables up to 75 meters in usable length, at speeds approaching 200 feet per minute. That is the technology. Now consider the physics that surrounds it. A spinning rotor disc generates lift by accelerating a column of air downward. According to Bernoulli's principle, the air directly beneath the rotor reaches roughly twice the velocity of the air being pulled into the disc from above. For a heavy helicopter like the S-92, this means that at approximately 3 rotor diameters below the aircraft, which is around 170 feet, the downwash velocity reaches almost 60 knots. 60 knots is roughly 70 miles per hour. On the Beaufort wind scale, that classifies as force 11, a violent storm. That is the environment a winch paramedic is being lowered into every time a Coastguard helicopter operates over a cliff or coastline. And here is where the operation gets even more demanding. Research conducted by the Civil Aviation Authority, supported by Bristow Helicopters and published in 2025, confirmed something that experienced search and rescue crews had long understood instinctively. Heavy rotor downwash does not simply buffet a winch operator, it impairs them cognitively. Winch paramedics working under strong downwash conditions in the study reported significant difficulty performing routine tasks, fastening harness buckles, reading numerical displays, communicating clearly. The research team, which included long-term aviation personnel with jet blast experience, concluded that downwash is a distinct phenomenon. The turbulence of the airflow, not just its velocity, is the issue. In 2022, a fatal accident at Derriford Hospital in Plymouth, caused by helicopter rotor downwash affecting a person on the ground, became the catalyst for this research program. The investigation revealed that the safe distance from a heavy search and rescue helicopter is typically 2 to 3 rotor diameters from the rotor hub, before downwash velocity dissipates to acceptable levels. Safe distance matters. For an S-92, that working distance is up to 40 meters. 40 meters on a cliff edge in a storm, with a casualty on the ground who cannot wait. That is the operational reality. There is one more force that every Coastguard rope rescue technician trains specifically to defeat, the pendulum. When a rescuer or casualty is suspended on a rope and is not positioned directly beneath their anchor point, the laws of physics begin to act in a very particular way. If anything dislodges them from a stable position, they will not simply fall, they will swing. The pendulum effect, also known as a swing fall, is one of the most feared scenarios in vertical rescue. The horizontal velocity generated during a swing can exceed 20 miles per hour. If the casualty or rescuer makes contact with a cliff face, a protruding rock, a piece of structure, or any solid object at that velocity, the injuries are typically severe and often fatal. The protective standard taught across Coastguard rope teams is the 30-degree rule. A rescuer must remain within 30 degrees of the vertical line directly beneath their anchor. Outside that cone, the energy generated in a fall becomes unmanageable. Anglesey, on the Welsh coast. 2 climbers are stuck on a ledge high above the sea. One of them has nothing attaching him to the cliff. He is balanced. If he falls into open water and rocks below. The HM Coastguard search and rescue helicopter arrives and immediately encounters the central operational dilemma of the night. The helicopter's downwash could dislodge the climbers it is trying to save. The aircraft holds at distance and illuminates the cliff face with its searchlight. A Coastguard rope rescue officer descends in darkness, line by line, manually managing every angle of his approach to keep the climbers within that 30-degree safe zone. Both men are recovered, neither falls. Pay attention to the technique there, not the bravery, the technique. Every meter of descent in that rescue was a calculation. Vector forces, fall factor, swing radius, downwash distance, all of it in the dark on a hostile cliff against a rising sea. This is what rope rescue technician training is built around. Polzeath, Cornwall. 2 teenage boys are trapped on a rocky ledge as waves close in. The Coastguard rope team arrives. The system is rigged in minutes. The boys are walked up the cliff to their parents inside half an hour. The rescue looks simple. It was not. It was the product of a training architecture that includes simulator systems, like the Mythos rig from Leonardo Helicopters, a 1-to-1 scale cabin, equipped with a functional rescue hoist and integrated with virtual reality scenario training, allowing crews to rehearse hoist operations in conditions that would be unsafe to replicate in live training. And it was the product of years of investigation into why rope rescue operations sometimes fail. The pattern is now well documented. The errors that cause 80% of rope rescue incidents come down to a small cluster of categories: misunderstanding the physics of mechanical advantage systems, poor anchor selection or configuration, communication breakdown at the cliff edge during transitions, and inconsistent leadership decisions made under stress. It is not the equipment that fails, it is the application of the physics through the equipment. There is a quiet, unglamorous reality at the heart of British Coastguard cliff rescue, and it is this: the service is sustained largely by volunteers. The 300 Coastguard Rescue Teams positioned around the coastline are crewed by people who hold day jobs and respond to pagers at all hours. The volunteer at Whitehaven, who responded to 109 taskings last year, was almost certainly not a full-time professional. In 2024, the Department for Transport awarded its rescue shield to the Birling Gap, Eastbourne and New Haven Coastguard Rescue Teams for their response to multiple challenging emergencies on the South Downs Cliffs. In the same year, winch paramedic Jason Bibby and winch operator Carlton Reel of the Newquay-based search and rescue helicopter were awarded the Billy Deacon Memorial Trophy for meritorious and selfless acts of courage. These awards do not exist because the work is straightforward. They exist because the work is, in a meaningful technical sense, close to impossible, and it is done anyway. The story of British Coastguard cliff rescue is not unique to the United Kingdom. Every coastline in the world that produces casualties produces rescuers who must operate at the very edge of what physics allows. The United States Coast Guard covers 95,000 miles of shoreline. Equivalent services exist in Norway, in Australia, in Canada, in Japan. The mathematics of vector force, fall factor, downwash velocity and pendulum swing are identical in every jurisdiction. What changes is the willingness of a particular society to fund, train and trust the people who do the work. The United Kingdom has built, over decades, one of the most technically refined Coast Guard rope and helicopter operations in the world. And almost nobody outside the service understands the physics that makes it function. The next time a rescue helicopter passes overhead or a Coast Guard team is mentioned in a news bulletin, consider what is actually being asked of the people on that line. £9,000 rated ropes, 16G human tolerance limits, 60 knot downwash, 20 miles per hour swing velocities, 30-degree safe zones, 40-metre buffer distances, all of it being managed simultaneously, often in darkness, often in storm conditions, often with a casualty whose life is measured in minutes. And it works. Most of the time, it works. 2 minutes from arrival to recovery on an isolated rock in the North Atlantic. That figure is not a slogan. It is the product of 80 years of accumulated physics, doctrine, training, and quiet professionalism. The impossible is being done, routinely, by volunteers and professionals operating at the absolute edge of what the human body and the equipment that supports it can endure. The cliff is not the danger, gravity is, and the people standing between gravity and the casualty are the ones holding the line.